Mac Miller has been gone now for more than 6 years.
An up-and-coming rapper is dead at 26 years old. Mac Miller believed to have suffered an overdose at his...
And even though Mac is no longer physically with us, his legacy definitely is. Partly due to the amazing discography he was able to create while still alive, but also due to the amazing albums he created that never officially released, which since his passing, his estate has handled. Today we got his second posthumous album, Balloonerism, an album that die-hard Mac fans have been itching for ever since the first tracks were leaked back in 2020. The majority of this album was recorded in 2014, a particularly dark year for Mac Miller, where, as with lots of artists, was a time that produced some of his best material.
Being able to admit that's not the way to live.
No doubt this album's release is a cause for celebration. It's another great body of work from the late Mac Miller. But beneath the brilliance of this album lies a haunting truth. It's not just music, but also a window showing the pain and complexity that Mac carried with him while alive. Something that was so hard to see when masked beneath the joyful and friendly demeanor he always carried himself with.
Yeah, somebody died today. I saw his picture in the funny papers. Didn't think anybody died on a Friday.
Mac Miller's estate includes his mother as well as his brother. It's obvious they don't care about making money off Mac's remaining bodies of work, but rather they want to preserve Mac's legacy, art, and voice now that he's gone. So far, they've released Circles in 2020, the follow-up to Mac's 2018 Swimming, which was Mac's last album released months before his passing. They've also released a deluxe version of 2013's Watching Movies with the Sound Off and remastered 2 mixtapes for streaming: the 2011 I Love Life Thank You and 2014's Faces. Now exactly 5 years after the first posthumous release, Circles, back in 2020, we get Balloonerism. For the longest time, Balloonerism didn't feel like a real tangible project, but rather a piece of fan fiction that was pieced together haphazardly from things like leaked tracks, a post about Mac commissioning an artist for the cover, and the discovery that Mac's brother registered a website way back in 2014. But then this seemingly imagined Mac Miller lore became a reality. At Tyler the Creator's Camp Flog Gnaw Festival, this happened. An official announcement of the album, as well as a teaser for the 20-minute animated film accompanying the release. To see this album release is definitely exciting, but when we listen to the lyrics and the songs for this project, it's hard to ignore the signs. This was a dark time for Mac.
I can't get excited over Mac Miller until I see where his head is at.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But doesn't it look like a positive, more positive place?
The majority of Balloonerism was recorded in the span of just a week. In fact, according to one of his main producers, Eric Dan, he mentioned on Reddit that 90% of the album was recorded in that week. This was sometime in March 2014. The year prior, Mac had released his second album, Watching Movies with the Sound Off, and with that album, Mac was departing from his original frat boy label he was given at the start of his career and moving towards a more artistic, dark, and introspective sound.
All these backfires of my experiments with drugs.
Which with this project, Watching Movies, is our first glimpse into that. Between Watching Movies and recording Balloonerism, Mac released a live album from his tour and also a mixtape, Delusional Thomas, in October 2013, under an alter ego of the same name.
What happens when I'm suicidal, vibrations all through my spinal from...
And the whole mixtape was produced by Larry Fisherman, yet again another alter ego of Mac.
What about these aliases? One of your aliases is Larry Fisherman.
Yeah.
Another one is Delusional Thomas.
Yeah. Delusional Thomas, he's a character I created who's kind of like a psychopathic murderer.
Oh, and who's Larry Fisherman?
Larry Fisherman represents the just studio rat in me. For me, I like to kind of create characters and flesh them out. All the way.
Based on this explanation to Larry King, it seems like Mac is creating an exaggerated version of himself through these characters. I mean, obviously Mac's not a psychopathic murderer, but by creating Delusional Thomas, he's able to channel some of that darkness into a made-up entity. Around this time in late 2013 and early 2014, Mac was struggling.
You know, last time I did this, I went into a deep depression and started using drugs.
This interview during the summer of 2013 was in the middle of his heavy drug use and depression. But aside from the sunglasses inside, you wouldn't think things were that bad. Mac joking and smiling doesn't make you raise any eyebrows or draw looks of concern, but things were bad and quickly were spiraling out of control.
Nah, this is too much though. This is the pure.
What? No.
It's not that shit.
I'm saying that's how it carries.
You're not listening to me. Listen to me. I'm your brother. This right here.
I'll taste it. I'll let you know.
You're gonna miss a couple of shows.
No way.
Well, while on tour and about to head home, Mac decided things had to change.
And you admitted that you spent a lot of time over at Rick Rubin's house.
Yeah.
Sort of getting your mind right.
I didn't want to go to a rehab facility, so I called Rick Rubin. Just shit was getting a little out of hand. I basically just drunk dialed him. I was just drunk and thinking about life. And I was like, you know what I would love doing when I got home is like get my shit together. Rick Rubin, you have your shit together. You're still alive.
Then, for the foreseeable future, Mac spent his time living down the street from Rick Rubin's Shangri-La estate.
No, I didn't stay in his house. I got a house that was down the street.
And then you would walk over?
Yeah.
Like any good
I would
neighbor
golf cart over every day.
Stop.
There, Rick served much like Mac's therapist, listening to him, teaching him about transcendental meditation, and helping him creatively express himself fully. Although Mac didn't know it at the time, this was the start of the creation for Balloonerism. But it wouldn't become what we have now. Instead, it became something totally separate, a mixtape called Faces. Faces is Mac's mixtape from 2014. When Mac first released it, his fans liked it, and the hip-hop world didn't really know much about it. But now, more than 10 years later, Mac fans love it, and is regarded by many as the magnum opus of Mac Miller's discography. While making Faces, Mac started out with the idea of Balloonerism in his mind. His brother Miller McCormick registered a website for it, Mac commissioned this artist to rework one of his art pieces into the cover, and Mac had a bunch of random tracks he created during a week-long jam session, which operated out of his studio known as the Sanctuary or Red Room, where Mac had an open door policy for artists to come and go as they pleased to simply just create. Some regulars included Ab-Soul, Schoolboy Q, Thundercat, Earl, Vince, The Internet, as well as a handful of others. After this week-long jam session, Mac had a handful of tracks that were created. Mac then organized these into a playlist called Balloonerism because he was just visually trying to see what that album could look like. However, for whatever reason, we don't really know, Mac decided to just scrap the project and focus entirely on Faces.
Mac McCormick, a lot of people might know you as... I'm sorry. Sometimes I look at myself and I say, I hate you. I hate you. I wish you were never here. I wish you were never born. I hate you. So Faces is coming out on Mother's Day. You feel me? And I really have been getting clean. For real, I want to thank Rick Rubin for showing me meditation. Thank you, Richard. And I'm saying yes to life. Y'all should say yes to life too and get Faces May 11th.
Theories have circulated around the internet about the quote lost album Balloonerism, some claiming that Mac was told by his label that the project was too experimental so they shelved it. Others claim that it's supposed to be his death album, one that he created as a sort of musical representation of a death letter where Mac said to release it once he died. And as exciting as both of these theories sound, there's not really any merit to them. It's possible that Mac Miller's label at the time, Rostrum Records, said that this was just too experimental to release, but his deal with them expired in January 2014, and the creation of Balloonerism didn't happen until much after that. Mac wouldn't sign another deal until October that same year with Warner Brothers, and between January and October, it's known that Mac just took that time to create. He wasn't constrained by any deals, and having just come off his therapeutic sessions with Rick Rubin months prior, it seemed Mac just wanted to express himself artistically without any agenda. What probably happened, and this is just my guess, is that Mac Miller was probably in a very creative, specific zone for that week, developing a hyper-specific sound. And once he moved on from that and got into the headspace for making Faces, he just moved on. Perhaps he felt better about the sessions for Faces than he did for Balloonerism, and didn't want to release both projects so close to one another given the similarities. However, again, this is a total guess. I don't know for sure, and I don't think anyone does except for Mac. So with Balloonerism out of the picture, Mac dropped Faces.
Feel me?
And although an amazing album, the lyrical content is for sure worrisome. Many claim it to be the darkest album of Mac's career. I mean, there really isn't one uplifting song here, but rather a confessional from Mac of where he was at during that time.
She was supposed to get me high, why the fuck I wanna die now? I'm the only suicidal motherfucker with a smile on.
There seemed to be a clear progression for Mac Miller in his career. It started with him coming onto the scene as a frat rapper with feel-good party songs like Donald Trump, Knock Knock, and Party on 5th Ave. Then from 2013 to 2014, he started descending into a dark place, starting with watching movies with the sound off. Then came Delusional Thomas and Faces. However, with his next album, it would seem that he'd leave this all behind.
Now Mac is back with a new full-length album, Good AM. Explain the title, Good AM.
I think for me, I wanted the album to feel like a breath of fresh air. Just a lot of the music I had done recently was a little darker and sad. To depressing, if you will. And I wanted this album to kind of be a departure from that.
Good Morning was a completely different album than his last project, Faces. Unlike Faces, this project had radio hits like Weekend featuring Miguel and positive uplifting tracks. It seemed Mac was in a much better place, but was he really?
They saying that I'm sober, I'm just in a better place.
As mentioned prior, Mac's career had a very clear progression. Now we had left the dark place and entered into a new positive and love-filled one, with his next album, The Defined Feminine, also fitting perfectly into this era. However, moving out of that phase, we enter into the acceptance phase of Mac's career. This is where Swimming in Circles lands. While in the dark place, Mac was battling himself, dealing with depression and hard drug use. And then in this positive place, it seemed that he had left that side of him behind, almost masking it with these happier projects. Now in this acceptance phase, he released Swimming in Circles. Swimming, an album that's a perfect blend of the ones that preceded it. Introspective, a bit melancholy, but also a bit hopeful. The concept alone is how Mac is staying above water. Instead of drowning in his own sorrows, he's moving forward, working on himself to be better. So unlike the transition from Faces to Good Morning, going from a dark place to a happy one, he's facing his problems head on and dealing with them. Unfortunately, shortly after Swimming released, Mac overdosed.
I don't need to lie no more. Nowadays all I do is shine, take a breath and ease my mind.
Like Balloonerism, Mac had one other project released after his death, Circles, an album that was pretty much finished and was meant to tie into Swimming, the concept being swimming in circles, which can seem a bit nihilistic, but nihilism is a form of peace, accepting what is. In Swimming, Mac is progressing towards a goal, but then with Circles realizes he's swimming in circles, repeating the same patterns of behavior, which is a very honest look at himself and those dealing with depression and substance abuse. The idea that you swim to a shore and are saved, although glamorous, is just not the reality. There are always ups and there's always downs. In an interview just a month before his passing, Mac touched on this, saying, "I think the beauty is in being able to be in both places. The very beginning of my career was completely carefree. I felt invincible. I felt just zero sadness. And then I've had all sadness, just all darkness. But I think being in a place where you can spend time in both and gain perspective on that other side makes you appreciate what each brings to the table. I really wouldn't want just happiness, and I don't want just sadness either. I want to be able to have good days and bad days. I feel like that's really important." In Circles, the last track is titled Floating.
There's a room somewhere up above the tree. Once you get there, you don't ever want to leave, no, no, no.
This is the end of the two concept projects, the end of Swimming in Circles. Now Mac's floating. He's no longer swimming towards anything, but merely staying above water for now. It's as if Mac had come to peace with his eventual death, and he accepted it. I don't think Mac knew it would come so soon, nor did he want it to, but it did, and although tragic, it did feel like Mac was at peace. With the release of Balloonerism, we're transported back to the dark place that Mac once lived in. Friends, family, and even fans of Mac's understood to an extent the troubles he had. With each subsequent project, they would measure his mental state. Is he depressed? Is he happy? Of course the signs were there, but Mac was dealing with them. He, like all humans, are a product of their own habits. His happened to take his life, and there's no one to blame for that. What he left behind is an amazing discography, friends that care a ton about him, and family who love him and are handling his legacy with the utmost respect, releasing music exactly how Mac wanted it to be. Thanks for watching. If you don't already, please be sure to follow us. You're the best.